Welcome back. I hope you all had a chance to, reflect on what stood out to you so far about floating solar farms.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool stuff, right? What's interesting to me is how much these FPV systems, have in common with things like oil and gas platforms.
Oh, really?
Structures we typically associate with, well, very different energy sources.
Now that you mention it, yeah, it makes sense.
Right.
Both types of structures have to deal with, like those harsh ocean environments.
Yeah.
They both need specialized engineering for mooring and anchoring.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing there are also some pretty big differences, right?
Oh, definitely. For one, the shape and structure of an FPV system are very different from a traditional oil rig.
Right.
Floating solar farms are much more spread out, which changes how wind and waves impact them.
And of course, there's the whole electrical aspect of FPV systems. You've
Yes.
got like miles of cables connecting those solar panels,
Yeah.
all of which need to be protected from the elements.
Right.
Plus, you have to get that electricity back to shore somehow.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating blend of like tried and true offshore engineering and, cutting edge renewable energy technology.
I like that.
The DNV document actually references other industry standards,
Okay.
like DNV RPC 205, which deals with environmental conditions and loads for offshore structures.
Mm-hmm.
So they're building on a solid foundation of knowledge,
Right.
but adapting it to this new application.
So they're not reinventing the wheel,
No,
but they're definitely putting a new spin on it.
exactly.
I imagine this whole field, it requires a pretty diverse set of skills.
Oh, absolutely. You need structural engineers,
Right.
electrical engineers,
Yeah.
environmental scientists, mooring experts.
I bet.
It takes a whole team to get these projects off the ground.
And someone to keep all those experts organized.
Oh, yeah.
I bet good project management is essential for a project this complex.
It's critical. You're dealing with a lot of moving parts, literally and figuratively.
This all sounds like a great opportunity for anyone interested in a career in renewable energy.
I think so.
I have a feeling the demand for these, specialized skills is only going to grow.
Definitely. It's an exciting field to be in with lots of room for innovation.
Okay, so we've talked about the technical and environmental aspects, but what about the economics?
Right.
How does the cost of building a floating solar farm compare to a traditional land-based one?
Well, generally, the upfront costs for floating solar are higher.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
You've got the added expense of the floats, the mooring system, and all the specialized engineering needed for a marine environment.
Right. But there are also some potential cost savings down the line.
Okay.
For instance, you don't have to purchase land,
Right.
which can be a huge expense, especially in densely populated areas.
And I imagine there's less site preparation involved.
Oh, yeah.
You don't have to clear and grade the land, which saves time and money.
Exactly. And there's another, interesting economic factor.
What's that?
Floating solar farms, they can often be located closer to areas with high electricity demand, like coastal cities.
Right.
This can reduce transmission costs
Makes sense.
because you're not sending the electricity as car.
So it's a trade-off.
It is.
Higher upfront costs, but potentially lower operating costs and, other long-term benefits.
Right.
Plus, you're tapping into a renewable energy source,
Oh, yeah.
which has its own set of advantages.
You got it. It's about taking a holistic view, considering both the economic and the environmental factors.
Speaking of the environment, you mentioned earlier that these FPV systems can actually be beneficial in some ways.
Oh, yeah.
Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. One of the interesting things about placing solar panels on water is that the water can actually help cool them. This improves their efficiency compared to land-based panels, which can get quite hot, especially in sunny climates.
So it's like a built-in cooling system,
Yeah.
Mother Nature lending a helping hand.
Exactly. And I've also heard that these systems can be beneficial for water resources.
Oh, okay. Is there any truth to that?
Yes, in certain cases.
Okay.
For example, by covering a portion of a reservoir with floating solar panels,
Uh-huh.
you can actually reduce evaporation,
Oh, wow.
which helps conserve water.
That's wild.
This is particularly important in areas facing water scarcity.
So these FPV systems can actually help address multiple problems at once.
Yeah.
They generate clean energy, they can improve the efficiency of the panels, and they can even help conserve water.
Exactly. And they can be deployed in locations where land-based solar might not be feasible,
Right.
opening up new possibilities for renewable energy development.
That's cool. So where do you see the future of this technology heading? Do you think it'll, become the dominant form of solar energy?
Well, it's unlikely to completely replace land-based solar.
Right.
Each has its own advantages and disadvantages, And the best approach will likely involve a mix of both technologies.
Right.
But I definitely think FPV systems have a bright future.
I agree.
As the technology continues to improve and the costs continue to come down, I expect to see them deployed in more and more locations around the world.
Do you think they'll mainly be used for like large-scale projects like those massive solar farms we've seen images of?
Yeah.
Or do you see a role for, smaller, more niche applications?
I think it'll be a combination of both.
Okay.
We'll definitely see those large-scale projects, especially in areas with, limited land availability.
Yeah.
But I also see a lot of potential for smaller systems.
Okay.
For example, they could be used to power like remote islands
Oh, cool.
or coastal communities that are currently reliant on diesel generators.
That makes sense.
They could also be used in areas with sensitive ecosystems where traditional land-based solar might be too disruptive.
It's exciting to think about all the potential applications. It sounds like we're just, scratching the surface of what's possible with this technology.
For sure.
And I'm curious, what are some of the key areas where you see the most potential for innovation in the future?
Well, one area that's like really interesting is the development of new float materials.
Okay.
As we talked about earlier, durability, buoyancy, and non-toxicity are all like essential properties.
Yeah.
But researchers are constantly working on new materials that are even lighter, stronger, and more resistant to degradation.
Cool.
Imagine a float material that's so durable it lasts for decades.
Whoa.
Or one that's made from like a completely biodegradable material.
That would be a game changer. It would make these systems even more sustainable and cost effective.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what about the mooring systems?
Yeah. Are there any exciting developments on the horizon there?
Yes. There's a lot of research going on in the area of dynamic mooring systems. Yeah. These are systems that can, adjust to changing water levels and wave conditions, which can help reduce stress on the mooring lines and anchors.
Yeah.
This could lead to longer lifespans and lower maintenance costs for the mooring system.
So it's all about finding ways to make these systems even more resilient and adaptable to the ever-changing conditions of the marine environment.
Exactly. And there are other areas of innovation too, like developing more efficient and durable underwater cables for transmitting electricity,
Right.
or finding new ways to integrate FPV systems with other renewable energy sources, like wind and wave power.
It sounds like the future of floating solar is full of possibilities. But before we get, too carried away dreaming about the future, let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture.
Yep.
How do FPV systems fit into the global energy landscape?
That's a great question. And it's one that leads us to some really important considerations.
I'm ready to dive into that. Tell me more.
Okay, so we're zooming out, to the big picture now.
Right. Where do floating solar farms fit into the world's energy puzzle?
Well, it's no secret that the world is scrambling to shift away from fossil fuels.
Yeah.
We need cleaner energy and we need it fast.
I agree.
Solar energy is already a major player, but traditional land-based solar farms, they have their limitations.
Yeah, like finding enough space for them.
Exactly.
Especially as our population grows and land becomes more and more precious.
FPV systems, they unlock a whole new frontier for solar energy.
I like that.
It's like we suddenly realize we had this massive untapped resource right there in our lakes and oceans.
And not just space, right.
Right.
We talked about how the water helps cool the panels, making them more efficient.
Hmm.
Plus, they can be closer to coastal cities where a lot of the demand is.
It's a really elegant solution.
It is.
Addressing multiple issues at once.
But of course, no energy source is a magic bullet.
That's true.
How do you think FMOZ systems compare to, other renewables like wind or hydropower?
That's a great question.
They all have their pros and cons, right?
They do.
It's not about picking a winner,
Right.
but finding the right mix.
I like to think of it as assembling a superhero team,
Okay.
each with their own strengths.
Right.
Wind might be great in one location.
Yeah.
Hydropower in another, and FPV systems perfect for, yet another.
Love that analogy. A diverse energy mix. It keeps things stable and resilient, just like a good team.
Exactly.
But even superheroes have their weaknesses.
It's true.
What are some of the, hurdles FPV systems might face as they scale up?
One concern is, the potential impact on aquatic life.
Right.
We touched on this earlier.
Yeah, we did.
But careful planning is vital.
Absolutely.
Environmental assessments, mitigation strategies.
Right.
All of that has to be top-notch to minimize any harm to water quality, fish, birds, the whole ecosystem.
Right, striking that balance
Yeah.
between harnessing nature's power and respecting its delicate balance. Anything else that keeps you up at night, thinking about the future of FPV systems?
The regulatory landscape is another big one.
Okay.
FPV is still relatively new,
Right.
so clear guidelines and standards are essential.
Yeah.
We need governments and industry leaders working together to ensure responsible development.
It's like setting the rules of the game.
Yeah.
So everyone plays fair
Right.
and protects the environment at the same time.
Absolutely.
What about the security aspect? These systems are, becoming more connected, relying on technology.
You're hitting a critical point.
Oh, am I?
Yeah, cybersecurity is paramount.
Right.
As these systems become more complex and interconnected,
Yeah.
we need to make them resilient against cyber attacks that could, disrupt the power grid.
It's like building a fortress around our clean energy future.
Exactly.
But even with fortresses, you need the people inside on board, right?
Oh, yeah.
What about the communities near these projects?
Community engagement is absolutely vital. Local residents, they need to be involved from the get-go.
Right.
Transparency, collaboration, that's how we build trust
Yeah.
and ensure these projects benefit everyone.
And on that note, dear listener, I want to turn the question to you.
Good idea.
Think about everything we've explored today, all the possibilities and challenges.
Yeah.
What do you think is the most promising application for FPV systems?
We're all ears. Is it those massive utility-scale projects, smaller niche applications, or maybe something entirely new that we haven't even considered?
Share your vision with us.
This is where the deep dive becomes your dive.
I like that.
We've given you the tools, the knowledge, the context. Now it's your turn to explore.
And remember, the world of floating solar, it's constantly evolving.
Yeah.
New innovations are happening all the time.
Stay curious, stay informed, and who knows? Maybe you'll be the one to unlock the next big breakthrough in renewable energy.
That's a great note to end on.
Yeah, it is.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into floating solar farms. We've barely scratched the surface, but hopefully we've sparked your curiosity and given you plenty to ponder.
Lots to think about.
Until next time, keep exploring the world one deep dive at a time.